Welcome to the Love on the Go podcast, brought to you by Carolina's Matchmaker. I'm Laurie, and for over 17 years, I've been helping singles find the relationship of their dreams all over the Carolinas. Along the journey, I've met so many amazing professionals and experts from various fields, and I'm excited to introduce them to you. What's my goal? I want to help you look at love and relationships in a new way and to grow in your understanding of how love works. Let's learn together how people have overcome personal obstacles and have found love, first and foremost with themselves. The ultimate goal is realizing that you are worthy and deserving of love. Let's get started. We have a really dynamic, interesting guest with us today. I've known Zack for many, many, many years, and he was formerly living in Charlotte, and then we were dabbling with some matchmaking with him. He was kind of a friend, and I would introduce him to women who hired me, and he sort of had the taste and the feel of matchmaking. Wasn't a full-fledged client, but I always considered him. And he also helped me out with a special get-together at his home, and we invited people and made some matches that evening. So I want to welcome Zack to the program.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here, Laurie. Thanks for having me.
So essentially, I was matching Zack up a little bit, and then he ended up moving to Florida, which is where you're currently living. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah. So, I spent about 7 years in Charlotte, and that's how we got to know each other. And then right around COVID, I decided to move back to South Florida just to be closer to my immediate family.
Yes.
My parents, my brother, my sister, 5 nieces and nephew. And so I've been down here for about it's been a little over 4 years now. So
okay,
I'm definitely flies. And I started an insurance business down here when I got down here. Kind of left the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I've been at the moment I am single. I've dated a few very high quality women down here since I've been back here. But nothing has gotten to that next level, which also I'd love to find that life partner, have a family and all that.
Wonderful.
And so it's been, but all these, as I've gotten a little bit older, these relationships have taught me a lot, so it's been good. They didn't work out, but definitely have learned a lot more than I think I would have when we first met, back in Charlotte.
Yeah. And so what I think would be really interesting to talk about today is some of because you're a guy who is always striving for better. You're a studier of interesting things, like a Tony Robbins guy. You've done a lot of work on yourself. You're introspective. You're on a growth track, always trying to better yourself. So I think it would be really interesting to sort of talk a little bit about some of the greatest challenges that you or men in general, because I know you've got a lot of buddies, single, married, whatever, have with dating. And I think it would be curious to hear about sort of your experience with the apps, maybe even in comparison to the matchmaking that I did with you. And
Sure.
we'll go each of these, but I would even love to sort of delve into, I have so many things to talk to you about. We may not get to everything, but this is some of it. Like sometimes people talk about the apps, feel a little bit addictive, kind of like a gambling addiction kind of concept. You're going back to it, you're going back to it, going back to it. And then I also think it would be cool to talk about sort of the mental cycles of dating and how sometimes people spiral out. And if you have any suggestions on, what you've done, if you've ever been sort of in that negative cycle. The most important thing is something I've been thinking a lot about, Zack, and we can delve into this too, is, women have a lot of, oftentimes single women and married women have a cadre of females around them who they can lean on, they can have the support with, and sometimes men don't. And I think that it can be a really lonely place, especially when men look around and they're like, who do I really have to lean on, to ask questions of, to support me through all the things. So I mean, we have about 30 minutes and we'll just go topic to topic, but we could talk for 4 hours. We've done it before.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love everything you just said. A lot to unpack there. So
Yeah.
how about I'll start with a statement like your last couple of sentences. I'll start with that. I think that's something that is super important. That women have always, I think since the dawning of time, women support each other. There's always been like that, you know, ecosystem versus like men. I think up until recently, it was kind of like a sign of weakness if like you couldn't like be on an island on your own, or if you like expressed how you felt or like the shown vulnerability.
Yes.
And one thing I've done since I've moved back to South Florida is I've really surrounded myself with a community of men who are like, hey, you're not by yourself. We've all done things, we've all had a past, and until you get to really know other people, you're like, oh, okay, like, so I'm not the only one,
Right.
or they're going through something, and like based on your experience, you're able to like kind of give them some great advice.
Yeah.
So totally, I think that's in today's world, especially like in this dating world that we're in, it's good to have other men who actually are like share your values,
Yes.
because like you are your peer group. So if you surround yourself with guys that are like still acting like dating like they're in high school,
Hmm.
or doing things that like you just don't share those values, you
Yep.
kind of like you're not your frequency, like whatever you're putting out there in the universe is not going to be as powerful, because like you're kind of your growth, I think, is not going to reach potential. So yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely made and I had some of those friends in Charlotte too, but definitely coming down here to South Florida, it's a much different environment down here for a lot of reasons. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's super important, that you do that as a man in today's world.
Yeah, I agree. And it definitely can be lonely. What have you done? What do you think is the greatest challenge men have with dating?
That's a good question. I think that we're always thinking that maybe there's something like better out there. That
Hmm.
is one, and I'm not perfect. There's no perfect woman. And I think that one of the biggest challenges is like with social media, and everybody's posting like, you know, the best part of their week or their month or whatever. And there are a lot of attractive people in the world. And there's a lot of different reasons why. From maybe there's cosmetic reasons why, there's filters reasons why, there's whatever it is, there's a lot more like distractions, I think, that there can be than
Yep.
there has before. And so I definitely feel like that's a challenge. And I also, the last thing I'll say about that is I feel like, it has to do, it starts with yourself though too. Because like if you have this like mentality of, well, I'm always like looking, for what's wrong, or I'm always like looking for maybe if there's something better. It's like there's, to me, that could be some insecurities too as a man. Like you got to like fill your, and that's something I've learned on my journey, is like you got to be like wake up every day and be proud of what you're doing and what you're accomplishing. And you'll put that out to the world, and it could be at a Starbucks, it could be at a Harris Teeter, it could be anywhere, where like all of a sudden you spark up this great conversation with somebody, and it's because kind of where you are with your mindset, and what you believe your self-worth is.
Yeah, if you're confident, you don't mind just talking to a random stranger in the line at Starbucks.
Yeah, and that's like kind of getting to the dating apps and like online dating. And it's funny, I was at like a company dinner a few months ago,
Mhm.
and there was all different sponsors there, and there was a younger gal who like is from New York City, and she's in her early 20s, and we end up sitting next to each other. I was like, all right, I lived in New York in my 20s, you got to like fill me on what's going on.
Right.
And all of her friends are single, and
Yeah.
she's very pretty, by the way. She's 23, 24. She
Yep.
has like 10 of her best friends from like high school and college. And I'm like, what's the dating scene like? She's like, well, let me give you an example. I'm riding on a subway, and instead of guys like interacting with me, I see them swiping on their phones.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, are you serious? She's like, I know, look at me. I'm like, no, that to me is preposterous. So I guess I say all that to say is like, you have to have, like, I think dating apps can be great. I
Mm.
also think that if you've got to look at it like there's more than that, there's more tools in your toolbox.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
meet people and to get out there. And especially with the world of, men kind of approaching women, that's kind of how it's always been. Or you meet through like a friend, or maybe you get lucky through work, or like there's the ways to obviously like proximity is super powerful. Like you run into each other because you live in the same building. I don't know. There's a million different ways you can meet
Yeah.
someone. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if like you are working for a small business and you live like in a single family home or a condo or whatever, and you're like, okay, where can I be the best version of myself to meet people?
Hmm.
I'm not saying online dating apps aren't a bad way to do it, especially if maybe you've been in this like relationship for years and you never really dabbled in it. But if you're somebody like me that's like kind of been single for a good part of their adult life, you kind of look at dating apps and you're like, maybe I should. I mean, for me, I don't think it's I definitely not knocking it, but I also think like it's good to like change things up, and all the examples we just used is how you can meet somebody and put yourself in a good position to meet somebody organically too.
Yeah. And what is like sort of a good, easy flow opener that you would have? Say you're standing in the line at Starbucks. What would you say to somebody?
Okay, so I love it. You're putting me on the spot. So if I was in, I saw like a really cute girl and I was like, what can I say to her? I would say something like this right now because I literally love pumpkin spice lattes. I love
Yeah.
pumpkin spice. I would be like, aren't you? I would say something like, it's just my life is like my quality of life has improved a lot since they came back with the pumpkin spice latte. I'm like, how do you? I'm like, what are your thoughts or something like that?
Yeah.
I would say something like, like something like, that kind of a thing. I mean, you could always say, hey, how's your day going? Or if you
Yeah.
meet somebody at the gym, you could be like, hey, how's your, how's your training been? Like, I've seen you in a lot of classes. Like, how's it going?
Yes.
Like, you can. It doesn't have to be like I've never been like not the Johnny on the spot, but I don't, like the pickup artist or something. So
Right.
it could be anything. But yeah, like I've always been. I think it's like good to have a note, like something, and then just ask a few questions. I think if as a guy, you don't want to maybe sit there and just talk for 2 minutes and she's like, uh-huh, uh-huh. Like, you kind of want to just see if there's a little back and forth flow, and yeah, you kind of get their energy, which is kind of nice, when you
Yeah.
meet somebody like that versus like on an online dating app, sometimes it's a little bit harder to kind of gauge energy and things like that.
Yeah. And
So
sometimes, you meet somebody in person and you can see the vibrancy of their spirit versus a static photo online.
right. I mean, okay, so for example, this morning I actually went into I just got like annual physical blood work done,
Yeah.
and one of the nurses, I brought my dog with me, and she was like, my dog's super cute, Alfie, as you know,
Yeah.
and she like was so, I mean, she was very pretty. She's from South America. It was like all the energy that I was feeling, and I was like, wow, like, and she's very attractive.
Yeah.
um, and so, you just like that's something that you're not necessarily going to get on a dating app,
Right.
and that's like an opportunity, like to, you know, um, you never. I mean, we have a teletalk appointment on Monday, so we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Use every opportunity to
yeah, yeah. I mean, you
time,
never
right?
know. Be like, hey, my
Shoot your
dog's pretty.
shot.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the worst, and I think that's what it is people are afraid. It's not like it used
Well,
to be
the
before
fear
they
of
did.
rejection. Yeah, and I think that I had that too, because it's like all the ones that all the girls that I'm into aren't into me, and vice versa. And I just think that's not a good mentality to have, and you just have to have like if it's like this person's right for me, then it'll work out, and the whole like yeah, like playing games and stuff like that, and like I think that I'm a much more emotionally available, man today than I was years ago, so like emotional intelligence and just being able to like even recognize certain people aren't for me either, versus like, all right, well, this girl, like she checks some of the boxes and, she's this and she's that versus like, no, you're wasting, it's like, and then 6 months goes by, you know, 3 months go by and you're like, you might be missing out on the right person. So I've done all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, you have. And it's so interesting because every time I talk to you, I feel like you're getting closer and closer
Yes. Yeah.
and you're recognizing so much about yourself. Do you think, have you ever fallen into that sort of addictive quality about a dating app where you're swiping, 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 you're bored, you're looking for some kind of fix, and you're like, let me just get on the app and see who I can find? Has that ever been your experience?
Yeah. I mean, I think that for like validation or significance, like, you're having like a moment of like, I just need to like feel like I have a date or something, or there's versus yeah. And I think I think a lot of people, it's probably a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a coping mechanism, but you're probably like my last relationship, I took like 4 months off of dating.
Yep.
I mean, I went on like a few dates here and there that I got set up, but I was like really like I wasn't on date. I wasn't like I took a break from social media. I was like, this sucks, but I need to like work through some things.
Yeah.
But I think generally speaking, I feel like a lot of people probably need to kind of go through that process versus
Hmm.
just jump right back into it. I mean, my cousin just broke up with his girlfriend. She broke up with him for the second time, and
Okay.
he just like immediately just got back on the apps like the next day, and he's like complaining to me. It's all the same girls and all these things, and I was like, Rick, like take a break.
Yeah.
Like take, I don't know, you don't have to go, you don't have to do like the months like I did, but I mean, take a couple weeks, a month, just to like
Yeah.
regret, like debrief, like kind of reflect and all that stuff. And versus everyone wants to, and that's a pattern a lot of people do that. I fell into that pattern too. And I was like, okay, like I need to like reevaluate a few things here because, that's just, I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to do that. But to your point, yeah, I've definitely done that. And I think a lot of people will do that because it's a short-term fix probably for not like a long-term solution of where they're trying to get to.
Exactly. And you started talking about sort of the mental cycles of dating. You meet somebody and you get super excited and you dig in and you hope that it's going to be the one. And then as time goes on, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is the one. What do I do? I'm comfortable. I don't want to get back out there again and start all over. Let me see if she can fit into the boxes that are most important. And you try to
I,
mold somebody.
yeah, I will say there's definitely stages to that. I think that that's a temporary for me. That was a mind. I definitely was like, getting anytime you go through a relationship, breakup, you're like, you think about those things. You're like, I have to get back out there. I'm gonna have to like get to know somebody new. Like this whole, you're just like, it feels heavy. Um,
Yes.
but I think that that is a season for a lot of people. Once you kind of figure out some things of where you can improve and grow,
Mhm.
I think you get more excited and feel like, okay, like I'm a better person. Like I've grown. Like I'm not, we're all, and not everyone does.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's an element of, once you do some of the work, you kind of get re excited. Like, I mean, if you had talked to me, in May, I would have been like, yeah, like not interested in dating right now. Like I don't, but I'm in a different mindset. But I think like you want to snap your fingers and like feel different the next day. But we've all gone through different, breakups in different situations, and it just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Excellent. And I've noticed even for myself, like when I get into a funk, the thing that gets me out of my funk is learning something new.
Yeah, exactly.
Signing up for a new course, going out with a new friend, just doing something different than the day-to-day usual.
Yeah, totally. Staying busy, listening to like, there's a lot of good, obviously, content out there that, your podcasts,
Mhm.
right? And you get to hear from a lot of different people from relationship advice,
Mhm.
life experience, what they learn, people who are authors, they come on your podcast and, they spent decades
Yep.
and 45 minutes, you get all of that knowledge,
Yes.
wisdom, and you're like, okay, because you can't, and we live in a world, and that's the positive about all the social media and the YouTube and all that. There's a lot of good things out there, that
Yeah.
people are able to gravitate towards. You just have to, yeah, feel like you said, like, spending time with quality people, learning something new, feeding your mind with like, positive things, not just like positive thinking, but, things where you feel like you're like areas of your life where you're like, oh, wow, like I am making some, and the only person that's going to honestly, truly like know that is kind of you, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everybody can be like, hey, you're doing great. You're doing great. And you're like, but if you don't truly feel that way,
Hmm.
you could be at Bank of America Stadium with 80,000 people cheering you on. You're going to feel like shit.
Yes.
Like it doesn't matter,
Yeah. No,
you
it
know?
doesn't matter. You need to convince
So
yourself.
100%. I believe like as I've gotten older, um, you know, just when you're the relation, when I've met someone, or I've met a quality woman, it's like things that you kind of share with me, like things just feel peaceful, right? You feel at home. You feel like I just feel like I've known this person that for forever, but it's only been 3 weeks or 3 months or whatnot. And so I think the gut, I feel like kind of like not thinking, not overthinking, because we all do that.
Yep.
Like, and that's when like I'll like I've always, not that I'm the relationship expert, I leave that up to you, but I think when you overthink a relationship, that's not always a good thing. It doesn't mean it's not a bad thing necessarily, but especially like when it comes to some of the things like divorce or like what if this. So I just think coming from a place of like feeling good about it, like,
Mm.
and again, not everything's going to be perfect, of course, but I'd have to say that's kind of what I envision, because I feel like when I do meet the right person, it's gonna just it's really like things are just will come together really well, and it'll just throughout the courting process, it'll just and then at the end of the day, that's for me. I think that's kind of how I would look at it.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think that dating in 2024 is that much different from dating 5 years ago? I guess I shouldn't say that. So before pandemic, let's say.
That's a good question. I mean, I think what my honest answer is, it's probably different for everybody,
Yeah.
depending on like where they are in their dating.
Mhm.
If they were married before, they were a long-term relationship, but they were like just kind of single, doing the same thing. So, I mean, for me, it's changed because I think I've changed.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, much more clear, much more intentional, than I was younger. I think sometimes you think things just, fall into place. Your puzzle, it's just kind of, you graduate college, you get a good job, then you get a promotion, and then you move to a city like Charlotte, you meet all these friends. It's just like, why? And then you just think, but at the end of the day, sometimes, the relationship piece, you know, for me hasn't necessarily gone that way. Not that it's my journey. I'm not like looking in the past, saying shoulda, woulda, coulda. You live and you learn. But I say all that to say that for me, it's different for me now because I just think I look at relationships different now than I did, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. Your dating priorities have changed as you've grown.
Yeah, and I think your priorities in life change. You're concerned about like, like it's not about going out 2 or 3 nights a week. It's more about like if you're gonna make time to go out, you want to make the most of it because your time is, to me, is whether it's with friends. I mean, I want to make time for people I care about in my life, but I'm gonna make the most of it. If it's gonna be a Friday night or Saturday night, because I also want to, do the things I enjoy doing, right? Which is a good thing, right? You want to like you want to call that person in, but I think at the same time you've got to make yourself happy, if that makes sense. Not sit on your couch, but at the same time, I think I spent some time trying to force some relationships too as I got into my 40s, where it's like
Mhm.
I really need to like settle down. It's got to happen. It's got to happen, and then that never leads to a positive result.
Yeah. So will you share a little bit about your experience with me with matchmaking? I know I introduced you to a few different people, what that
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that not only like do I think you're a wonderful person, but you're very intuitive when it comes to relationships, and you've obviously been doing this for decades now.
Mhm.
And it was always like a very, anytime I got matched with one of your clients, everything was always like, first, very professional. I mean, your whole team always, kind of made me feel very like, like again, like a professional process, very welcoming, and then our relationship just about dating,
Yeah.
and your experience and matching people over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so plus you've been doing.
18.
18. Okay. Yeah.
Hi.
And you love what you do. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is your passion for it. And a lot of people go through life and it's like they like what they do, they don't love what they do. Like you love what you do. You love, you found your calling. And I think that the networking events we used to do together and things like that and bringing people together. So it's like more you're more than just like a matchmaker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You do a lot, obviously more, and obviously you've got other businesses too, the coaching and the online dating and all that stuff. So I mean, it's just, so it's been yeah, I mean, overall it's just been a great, I mean, we've known each other about 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been
So yeah, and you've always, like we've just always had a great, kind of bond and friendship. And anytime I've can go to you for advice. I'm in a relationship, or there's like getting out of a relationship, and that's
Yeah.
been.
I always know when I see a text from Zach, how are you doing? That's something either he's in a new relationship or
Oh
he's just
man, I
with
know.
someone.
Yeah.
Terrible.
But
But
I think the big thing too is you let people, like, you got to like learn, like you could have told me, Zach, you got to do this, and you've given me a lot of great advice. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of times, like they say, your experience is just like anything, especially as you get older. Um, those relationships that you have, if you like the growth mindset we talked about earlier, I mean, that's where you really individually, I think, learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah. This has been amazing. Let's for a couple of minutes, let's do a little call out to Zach and why don't you talk a little bit about you, what you're looking for in someone. If anybody's listening and they wouldn't mind dating a guy in South Florida, they can let me know and I can try to make the match.
Sure. And I have a mini golden doodle,
Oh,
Alfie, that everybody loves too. But yeah, so I think for me, like, it's obviously like you got to be attracted to someone, but like more importantly, it's you share the same values, beliefs, goals, like someone who has like an active lifestyle, like likes to work out, likes to be busy, but also is into growing and learning.
yeah.
And family's important. um you
Have
know
kids.
they yeah, kids, and they again, a career that they're passionate about. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. It could, whatever there is that they're you know uh career wise is all good. So someone like that would be, I'd love to meet. I mean, I'm someone, I think, in their, yeah, that our 30s
Yeah.
would be great, and have some
How
life.
old are you?
42.
Or two. Yep.
Young 42.
Very young.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a great age. It's a great age to meet somebody.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think I've got a lot of, energy, and, I take care of myself, and I think that's important too. Somebody with like just a healthy lifestyle, like everything in moderation.
Yep.
And, we just, not that I'm going to like tell you everything I'm into, but just like, we have a lot in common, someone who we share the same interests. I think that's always important.
Yep.
And yeah, those are definitely some qualities I look for.
You like to travel
Yeah.
and you're living in,
Travel, work out, love dogs, animals,
yep.
spend time with family, sporting events, stuff like that, like stuff that entertains you. It's fun.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So if anyone wants to meet Zach, hit me up.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, my dad does have a $10,000 bounty. So anybody that introduces me to my future spouse, he says it's $5,000 when we get engaged, and it's $5,000 when she says I do. So, I
I
mean,
want to collect this money, y'all. So let's
yeah,
make
you,
this match
you could
happen.
be, yeah.
The bounty comes to
He's he,
Carolina's
he,
matchmaker.
he's told many of my friends that, so I'm holding him to it.
I love the bounty.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
adorable. Zach, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I've enjoyed
Definitely.
this
This was a lot of fun.
thoroughly, and we will talk soon. Thanks for listening to Love on the Go. I hope you join us on our next episode. You can make sure to know when it is by following us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed it, it'd be great if you left us a review. I'd appreciate it. In the meantime, to learn more about me and how my team can help you, visit carolinasmatchmaker.com. Until next time.